It's finally here. I'm finally making the anti-hydral blueprint video. It's not just any blueprint, it's the exact blueprint which I use, which got me from having sweaty palms, underarms, and feet to this dry, flaky hands. I know it might seem really gross, but actually I prefer having this over sweaty palms. You can even moisturize, but I don't use it. Now, why should you listen to me? I am someone who has been diagnosed with hyperhidrosis at the age of 5, and now I'm almost 27. So you can see I have lived my entire life. I have suffered my entire life with hyperhidrosis. And I don't need to tell you how it affects your life. You already know that. That's why you are here, of course. So, it's been over a year since I have been using this thing. This product, you know, I don't know how to describe this, but just a single product had that much impact on my life, which I can't even describe in words. No matter how much, the dermatologist sold me on other products like antiphoresis, some shitty lotions, surgeries, Botox, I had all of that. You already know if you watch me. But this thing is different. It's cheap as fuck, but it's the most effective thing I personally found in the entire suffering of my hyperhidrosis. Now, let's get to the point. How to apply this thing? Lots of you have requested to me, and I wanted to make this, but of course I wanted time. And first of all, I wanted to test it on my own self to make sure I am saying the things which are actually backed up by my own research. I'm not just randomly saying shit. Of course, that's not the point of me being here. First of all, you need this and a pair of gloves like this. Make sure if you get your gloves, they are like of fabric, actual cotton gloves, things like that. Don't get plasticky, things like plastic gloves. They are terrible. You need something that is breathable. And you also need a pair of socks if you have hyperhidrosis in your feet, and you will need a pair of t-shirts which you can sleep in if you are using antihydral in your underarms. Now for this video, I am only showing you how to apply this into your palms, because that is the most difficult part. If you get that right, everything else is very easy. In other areas you just have to apply it like a lotion, so it doesn't really make sense for now. And even I don't have the equipment to actually record that kind of thing. In the future I would of course do that, but for now I'm just showing you how to use this thing in your palms. Now, so as I said, you need antihydral. Don't ask me how to get this. You have to do that on your own, because for now I just don't have time to check, oh, this is available here, this that is not available here. So for now you do that by your own. And you would need a pair of gloves, as I said. When you should be using this, you should be using this before you go to sleep, exclusively, not any time in the day, just before you go to sleep. Now, how to use this? You get your antihydral and you open this thing. Fuck, man. Now, so you get this tube and you get your palm. So you are supposed to put a pea-sized antihydral on your palm like this. It's a pea size, very small amount. You can see not a lot, it's just a pea sized. That is already enough for your palms. You are not supposed to, apply more than that. Once it's like this, you are going to rub your hands. Okay, so you need to rub your hands very well. Once it looks like this, you should take your gloves and you should put them on. So it should look like this. So you can see antihydral is done, and then you put on your gloves, and now you go to sleep. Once you wake up in the morning, whenever you wake up, you are supposed to remove your gloves and you are supposed to wash it. And now I am going to tell you areas to focus more, because there are going to be areas in your palms or in your feet where you are sweating more than the other areas. Like in my case, I sweat more in this area. I'm pretty sure you are going to sweat here as well. You are going to sweat more here as well, as compared to area like in here inside your palm. So I usually do, what I do when you are past your initial phase, when you are in your maintenance phase, which I will talk about in a second, and you are going to apply antihydral exclusively on areas like here before you go to sleep. On some days where you are not going to apply, onto your whole palm, you are going to use on the areas which sweat more. So for me, and most probably for even you, it's going to be this area which sweat more. Let's talk about frequency. Frequency in using antihydral is going to make sure that you stay dry. So the frequency is divided into three parts. The first starts with initial phase, then comes the maintenance phase, and then comes the extreme temperatures, which is like a temporary phase, which I recently added. And I'm going to share a really quick story why I added this. So I was supposed to make this video just the last week, but I couldn't because for some unexpected reasons, I had to fly to India for a week, and there the temperatures, were extreme, like close to 40 degrees Celsius, 38, something like that. So there, I discovered a new strategy in order to keep my dryness throughout my whole, trip, and it worked. So now let's start with the initial phase. So initial phase starts when you first start using the antihydral. And when you start using the antihydral, you are supposed to use it like 5 days in a row, every single night. For some people, it might take up to 7 days in a row, but no more than 7 days. In 7 days or in 5 days, you should be dry as fuck. You should be having sandpaper flaky hands. And after that phase, the maintenance phase, starts. So when the maintenance phase starts, you are supposed to use antihydral twice a week. With using antihydral twice a week, you are going to keep your dryness throughout your whole week. And if in those week you find yourself that it's not enough, you add another session. Now, for the third phase, which is our extreme temperature, this is exclusively for summer, summer, summer. Like here in Italy, the extreme temperatures are like in August or, at the end of July. And for those extreme temperature phases, you should be using antihydral every other day. So like you used it, on Monday, you should skip Tuesday and you should, put it on Wednesday. So by using this frequency, you can make sure your hands are dry all day long. Now let me quickly show how to wash antihydral correctly. So when you wake up, remove your gloves, go to your bathroom, and open your tap of water, and then put your hands down there and start rubbing under running water. Once they are really wet and you see the cream is going away, put lots of liquid soap and then start scrubbing or rubbing your hands really well, go clockwise, anti-clockwise, and it might take maybe few minutes in order to get the antihydral off. I know it's very basic, but I'm just still sharing this for few of you retards. So let's talk about the side effects of using antihydral. First of all, there's no need to be worried. The side effects are almost nothing. The side effects are like sandpaper hands or dry, flaky, yellow hands, or sometimes you may get a cut. I'm going to, how tastically tell you how to handle these. So it's not even, something you have to worry about. Let's talk about the sandpaper hands. Sandpaper hands, you would get this in the initial phase no matter what. You get sandpaper hands when you use antihydral like consistently for few days in a row. Like in the initial phase, like 5 to 7 days, there you are going to get the sandpaper hands. And in the initial phase, it's really important to get to there. So don't avoid just because of the sandpaper hands. But once you enter the maintenance phase, I have designed that maintenance phase in a way you don't get sandpaper hands. Let's talk about the dry hands or flaky hands. You would get these, but you can use a very light moisturizer. And side note, I don't use it. I like, having very, very dry hands. And sometimes people even notice it. I know some of my friend actually said this to me that you should be using a moisturizer, that they are really dry. So it doesn't bother me, but if it bothers you, use a very, very light moisturizer. Now, the third, is our yellow hands. You would get this if you are using lots of antihydral. Like the amount you are using of this tube is excessive. Like I showed you earlier, if you are using pea-sized antihydral, you shouldn't be getting yellow hands. I never got it, in the entire year of using antihydral. Then there's, cuts. If you use antihydral on this part of your skin, you would get cuts. So make sure you are using on this side of your palm, not on the other side. And I know, we get sweat like here on our fingers, here on the upper area. But if you use antihydral like correctly on this part and you get dry, you won't be sweating from here. So you don't need to apply the antihydral directly here. If you use it here, you would get cut. I don't recommend this at all. Now listen to me very carefully. I'm about to say something which is very, very important before you use antihydral. You shouldn't be using antihydral if you have cuts like on your skin. It's, you have cuts. You should not be using antihydral. If you have open wounds, like you have wounds here, you shouldn't be using antihydral. And if you have some kind of skin infection, you should not be using antihydral. So once this is really clear, do your own research before using antihydral. So I just gave you my secret sauce. This secret sauce allowed me to stay dry for an entire year. Listen to this carefully. Entire year. If you have hyperhidrosis, you would think about ways to stay dry like for the 5 next minutes. And I stayed dry for an entire year using this thing and the exact protocol, the blueprint which I just gave you. But look, I got dry and nothing changed. I just went from being a wet ghost to being a dry ghost. My hands got dry, but I was still the same. Still same problem, still lack of confidence, still same fear of girls, still same zero status life. I realized that a $20 tube couldn't just, wipe out my 20 years of corrupted software. You are trying to run a wet software on a brand new dry body. Your brain is still programmed to play it safe, to avoid the handshake, and to apologize for existing. I am not a hyperhidrosis sufferer anymore. That identity to me is dead. I am a man who is competing with other men who are going for the top, not just average guy. I am competing with other men going for the top despite my biology. And because I have been through the trenches, I am currently refining the deeper work, the stuff that makes you actually hyperhidrosis proof, and more importantly, the manual for the software side of this battle. Fix your hardware, use this blueprint, and get to the arena. Once you are in the arena, you will realize that being dry didn't make you a man that you wanted to be. And when that happens, you will know where to find me. The link for the waitlist is in the description. Get your name on it right now. Fix your hardware, override the software. I'll see you right there.